This is a special presentation during the coronavirus pandemic for the Matt Stream Foundation's Victim Impact Program. This will be only used until the social group requirements are lifted. We hope this will all pass quickly and get us back to normal. Please watch for the codes. This is Matt. What we're going to do is I'm going to tell you about Matt. I'm going to tell you who he was, what he did, and what happened. We normally ask questions when we're doing a face-to-face presentations, but it's kind of hard to do that with this presentation. So if you do have questions and you'd like to ask us those questions, please feel free to give us a call at the Matt Stream Foundation or send us an email, and that email address is at the end of this presentation. Who was Matt? Well, Matt was a Finnish carpenter. Loved to work with his hands. He learned his trade in high school. It was one that a lot of the homes that he'd work on would be over in Barrington Park and Linden Estates, and some of these huge homes that people are living in. He'd invite me over to some of these homes and ask me and show me, or ask me any questions I had, and ask me what I thought, and show me what he was doing. And it was more or less one that he was very excited about what he did. And I kind of asked him why, that he was excited, that he seemed like he really liked this. He says, yes. He says, I know that what I'm doing for these people is going to be here long after I'm gone. Maybe he knew something we didn't, but it was more or less Nate that he was actually working to make these homes that he was working on the best they could be. So who was Matt? Well, when Matt was born, he was 2 pounds 11 ounces. To give you an idea how big 2 pounds 11 ounces is, that tiger that's sitting there fits in the palm of my hand. Matt would fit in the palm of my hand. And when his eyes were open as I held him, he'd look up at me and say, "Dad, I know I'm okay. I know I'm safe. As long as I'm in your hands, you're going to keep me away from harm." It was that way all the way through his life between I'm your dad, you're my son, is that large gray area that we confide in each other. Now, I was a corporate trainer for a national company. I would travel from coast to coast. And things that I would see and things that I would do in these places, I would come back and tell him. And he'd do the same thing to me. And granted, he wasn't traveling the country, but more or less that his camping trips and his fishing trips and things that he was doing at work. He'd come back and tell me about his fishing trips, and I don't know if any of you fish, but he'd come back and tell me about that fish that he caught that was this big as he stretched his arms out. But I'd see on one hand, on his right hand, it would be a smaller size between an index finger and thumb. And I'd say, "Matt, yeah, I see what the size of that is." I says, "Hopefully you threw that one back." He says, "Oh no, we use it for bait for the bigger fish." Now he was a good fisherman. He would always go out and catch his limit. But it was one that he would have those stories of the fish that got away, as we all do, of those who do that fish. But he was in a hospital for a little over 2 months before he could go home. So it was several times that he was there. Now that toy that's there is his first toy. And what he's laying in, if you can see the tags that are above that are there, these more or less little tags that are up here, it says Matt's Mercedes. And that unit that he's laying in is about as much as a brand new Mercedes. It's more of a Jamaican pushcart, man. But again, this is the way Matt started his life. The lady that's there is his mom, my wife, Lynn, who we're still happily married. But it's more or less this picture. He was the poster child for a nursery intensive care group that was started. To more or less to talk to parents, to tell them about what they're going to be going through and what they need to look for. Somebody other than the doctors and nurses to talk to, have another parent be able to talk to, so they know what things are coming up and what things to look for. But he did get to go home eventually after he was 5 pounds. He went home with the monitors and everything else. And even though in the nursery intensive care, all the monitors are going off and the noise and everything else, they would be sound asleep. So he always was a good sleeper. Who was Matt? Well, he grew up in West Omaha, attended the Millard School District, actually went to Millard North. He loved his family and his friends, and he looked forward to each new day as an adventure. Not many people can really truthfully say you cannot wait for tomorrow, not waiting to see a new adventure to have. New people are meeting, new things you're going to learn. But Matt was one of those. He had a wide range of friends and a wide range of activities. And I kind of asked him about that one day. I says, why the wide range of friends? He says, well, Dad, he says, you do? I said, well, I'm in a different business. I said, I'm trying to go in and talk to those different corporations and work my way down. I said, but you have the bank president on one end and a guy who swept the streets on the other, and then all those people in between. I says, why the wide range of friends? He says, well, it's the way I learn about people. Okay. So I learn about how they think and how they feel and how they react to things. And, Dad, there really is no difference between this person and that person. Well, other than the money in between. Going, wow, you're 23 years of age and you've already got this one figured out. He truly lived life to the fullest. We didn't realize he knew it until a little bit later, and we'll talk about that too. He lived his vacation in Colorado and traveling 4x4 trails up to the top of the Continental Divide. It was one that every summer we would go up to Colorado and go on vacation with his sister and our dogs, and more or less just to go and have a good time. Condo, because we've got a place that we stay in Dillon, Colorado, up by Silverthorne and Copper Mountain and Keystone and all at Breckenridge and so forth, so up in that area. But when we would go on vacations, everybody goes, including the four-legged kids. In fact, we got better stories with these four-legged kids than we do with the two-legged kids on some instances. But when Matt was 3, we decided to take the trip to the top of the Continental Divide and take a Jeep trip. Now, when you take a Jeep trip, what's the main thing you need to have? That's right, you need to have a Jeep. Well, we had a 4x, but it was a 4-door sedan, rear-wheel drive. Wasn't going to get us very far. And up where we were going, this is Montezuma Pass, or the top of, looking to the east. And for those who have been to Keystone, Colorado, maybe go skiing or which, as you're looking at the mountain from the highway, main highway, as you get to the left side, you're going to come around on the left side, turn off the highway, and try to go to the gondola. Well, if you stay on that blacktop road up through the forest, that's Montezuma Road. And Montezuma Road gets to the town where the blacktop stops, gets to the town of Montezuma. Now, that was originally built to bring up supplies, and the miners could come down and get their supplies and stay there for the colder winter parts of the winter, and then back up to their mines. But now it's become an area to where people are starting to build homes and another area, but more or less to live in the town of Montezuma. But if you follow the road through, as I said, the blacktop stops there, but you keep following through that road. And you go up a little bit further, and the road's dirt, and then it's dirt and rock, and it just keeps getting worse and narrower, and you need to have 4-wheel drive as far as a Jeep and not 4-door sedan. But the Park Service is always good about putting up signs and gates. And the gate was open. It said Montezuma Pass is open to the top and down, but 4x beyond this point only. And I knew it didn't mean 4-door sedan. So parked the car, and in the trunk we had a little kid carrier, a backpack carrier, that I had holes. There were holes cut out in it, and had aluminum frame. And I put Matt in it, strapped him in, put him on my back, and we started to walk the top of the Continental Divide. Now, it took us several hours to get up there, but the only exercise Matt was getting was pulling my ears, yanking my hair, and slapping me in the back of the head. What else do you do when you see the back of somebody's head that length of time? And I had hair at that time, for those who have seen my picture. But we got up the top. Now, when we got up there, it took us several hours to get up there, but by the time I got up there, I brought him around, unstrapped him, let him run around a little bit, get a little exercise. But when I did that, he kind of stood there and kind of weebled back and forth and kind of like he was unsteady. And I says, Matt, you okay? He looked up at me and goes, I was saying about myself with data. I have not a clue what he said. The data part I figured out. The parts before that, I had no clue. But the thing is, because I'd been a mountain guide in Colorado and a ski patrol at Breckenridge and Arapahoe Basin, I recognized he had altitude sickness. I picked him up, we came down a couple hundred feet, and he was fine. But from that point on, the next year we did have a 4x or a Jeep that we could drive all the way up and not have to walk as far. And we would tell him the story. And we did this every year. So 2 years, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years. After a while, he knew the story better than we did. He would tell us the story. He would describe the 303 panoramic view. He would describe the animals. He would describe the sound, which was pretty much really silent when there wasn't anything going on around us. It was enough to where his friends could see it in their own mind's eye from Matt's description. But we would get up there to more or less this valley. You can see the road that's here that goes south of Denver. The mines that are here, you've got some silver mines on this side. There's a few that are on this side out of picture. And you can see there's a pond here, a beaver pond here, another one that's back up into the close to the forest. Those ponds are the North Fork, the start of the North Fork of the South Platte River. So it's one of the headwaters of the Platte. But we would be up there. All of his friends have been up there, and we'll talk about that trip a little bit later. But when we go on our vacations, as I said, everybody goes. So who was Matt? Well, amongst the things I've already told you, Matt was a son, a brother, a grandson, a cousin, and a friend to everybody he met. And he was 23 years of age. So what were his dreams? How many of you have dreams for the future? We all have them. Long-term dreams, far-fetched dreams, short-term dreams. And Matt was no exception. Some of the dreams he had were ones that not unlike everybody else here or that's out there that listening to this presentation. But one, he wanted to play hockey and win a national championship doing that. Now, he could play ice, but he loved to rollerblade. I knew in the winter my driveway would always be clear. He'd go out and shovel the snow if there was some, go and roll the big metal barrel out, put his rollerblades on, and then practice his slap shot. And I could hear him out there hitting the slap shot and hitting the barrel, and then he'd miss it. He'd hit the garage door. But it was one that he really enjoyed that. We started the Omaha Vipers inline hockey team over at the Southwest YMCA here in Omaha. This team was 13 or 14 Team Blue when we firstly took it over. I was one of the coaches. And I went from there to ask them if they'd be interested in playing year-round. Well, this team plus the 20 to 25 guys that kind of went over the next several years. We won 3 regional championships and 1 national championship. The national championship we won in New Jersey, or we won in Chicago, and we beat New Jersey. Now, this team was the original 8. As I said, there were several young men that joined it. We also started the Omaha Vipers inline hockey team, which is now no longer. It has disappeared. But that we started that, had a team in every age group. But this is the only team out of the age groups that won any type of regional and national championship. I learned how to play the drums. Now, I'm a drummer. And that set that he's sitting at is my full big double set. He ended up with a job, went and raised enough money to go buy his own drum set, but taught him how to play and all the rhythms and all the music genres. And he found 2 guys that had electric acoustic guitars. One he went to school with, the other one was a good friend. They got interested in blues and jazz and started writing some of their own stuff. So they would play, and they're here and there. They had some gigs, free gigs here and there. But their first paid gig was 2 weeks after the crash. So this dream was started, but not totally completed. What was his dreams? Well, I'd already mentioned as far as the hockey and so forth, but he had a job he loved to go to. He'd invite me, as I said, over to some of these homes and tell me about what he was doing, and he was really excited about it, but he really loved his job. He was a finished carpenter, and I asked him, I says, "You really like this?" I says, well, how about the dust and the fumes and sometimes the where you're working doesn't have heat, sometimes it doesn't have air. And I says, yeah, he says, I really like this. He says, that's what I want to do the rest of my life and do for all these people that are here. Dream started his own construction business with his friends. He had 7 guys that could do everything but heating and air conditioning. They're looking for that 8th guy to be able to do that. They wanted to be their own contracting company, wouldn't have to go after any subs, and that they could all be internal. Okay, become financially independent. I don't know if anybody out there has been, when you got your first paycheck, some of us have to think further back than others, but when you got that first paycheck, did anybody ever tell you, don't go out and spend the whole thing. Put some away for a rainy day. It doesn't have to be the full check, but put some away. So you've got some that's there that you can fall back onto if you need it. And I didn't think that was sinking into Matt. I knew it was sinking into our daughter because she was saving everything, but I couldn't sure if it was sinking into Matt until I looked at his checking account. He had more money in his checking account than I did. He even had 2 savings accounts put away. He had 2 paychecks and his federal income tax check still uncashed in a drawer in his room. I have no clue what kind of savings program that was, but he's being frugal with his money. He'd go and put money get paid every Thursday. He'd put money in the bank, and he'd take out $61. He would split everything else out, but he'd take out $61. It's kind of a strange amount, but we figured out what it was. He was using it to buy his lunches during the week, but he was 23. He could go out and party. He'd use it for his weekends to go out and have a good time. And what money he had left over, he'd use it for his lunches the following week. Well, about Wednesday, he'd run out of money. And he'd ask his friends, his roommates, if he could borrow a couple dollars. Well, they'd give it to him because they knew he hated to owe people money. And he'd pay him back the next day when he got paid, which is what he did. But it was one that he was, putting money away. But those 2 savings accounts, we weren't sure. One was a little larger than the other. And what we figured out, the larger one, he was putting money away to start his own business, so he wouldn't have to ask his parents for money. The second one, he'd found a young lady named Jill. They were getting very serious with each other, and that he was putting money away to buy her an engagement ring. So he was looking for the future. He was looking to become financially independent. To enjoy life to the fullest, look forward each Tuesday as an adventure. Well, this is how we found out that Matt knew he lived life to the fullest. In high school, as a senior, he had to write a letter to himself in the future. And what that letter was this is what I'm doing right now. And this is my hope and dreams 5 years from now. Supposed to write it all out, fold it up, put it in an envelope, seal it, address it themselves, and then give it to the teacher. And the teacher would then give us to him 5 years later. Now, the teacher called us the Saturday before Christmas of 2004. Says, I have this letter. Explain what I just did to you. So I'd like to bring it over in person. She says, hopefully it was okay that I opened it. I didn't want to make sure there wasn't just a blank piece of paper or drawings. I didn't expect anything different from that, but I need to bring it over in person because this is the nicest letter I've ever read. In it said he wanted to get married and start a family. The way he put it was to find a nice lady, settle down, get married, and have kids. To own his own home. Knowing Matt, he'd had a big hand in building that home. To have children and see them grow and start their families. Give him a chance to do what they want to do, to live life to the fullest like his parents had done for him. For a parent to get a letter from their child, no matter the age, it says, what you taught me, what you gave me to live by is what I want to carry through my life and give to my children. That was our Christmas present for Matt that year. Dreams completed by his friends. Matt had a 1980 CJ7. This thing was an old Jeep. It was a rust bucket. I mean, it would run and then it wouldn't run. And it was more or less, we're always towing him here and there. And I said, Matt, you need to get rid of this thing. It's going to nickel and dime you to death. He says, Dad, I never want to get rid of it. I want to fix it up and take it to the top of Continental Divide and drive along the ridge. So his friends got together and said, we want to finish Matt's Jeep. And finish Matt's dream of that Jeep. And so I had him write down everything they had talked about with Matt, and he had told him that he wanted to do to that Jeep. He wrote them all together, combined into one list, and that became our marching orders to finish Matt's Jeep. This thing, as I said, was a rust bucket. It needed a lot of work. You can see that there's a couple places here in the floorboards that needed to be taken out. Some of those were cut out and replaced. The dashboard was taken off. It wasn't rusted, but it needed to be taken off to work on the finish because they wanted to put a granite finish on it. The speedometer sits here because it sits in the middle of the dashboard for this age Jeep, which is kind of hard to see at what speed you're going because you have to keep looking over to the center of the console. But they went and took it out. They took the hood out, and that's over someplace else getting painted. But they went and they stripped out or cut out all the old rusted metal, welded all brand new metal in, bondoed it. For people don't know what Bondo is. Bondo is a plastic filler that hides the imperfections. There is so much Bondo on the sides of this vehicle, and this is the good side. The other side was really bad. But they would go and go over the top, sand it all down, smooth it all down, and then after the paint job, because the amount of Bondo that's on here, if you take one of those magnet ribbons that says support the troops and you put it on the side, it falls off because it's pretty well skinned in plastic. But they did a lot of things. Rick here is one of Matt's friends and is the one who did all the body work on it, along with it. He showed the other guys how to do it. And where it's at, as far as where the Jeep was at, was over in one of Matt's best friend's house that had a detached garage, and the person who had lived there before did auto body. And they had extra lights on the walls, and they had more power as far as electrical. They could use all their drills and sanders. And over here on the wall, there's a big exhaust fan, so that they could work longer hours. And it was detached, and it was away from other homes, so you could work a little bit later as far as noise-wise. But they did finish the Jeep and get everything done with it that it needs to be. And this is what it looks like now. There's a few things that's been changed on it, but not that many. But you can see Sam's Club sitting over here on L Street because we're waiting for the Miller Day Parade. That orange bowl that sits right here is full of candy because Morris were handing out candy, which we found out we're not supposed to do. Also, you can see inside, it's all Line-X. Line-X donated the entire interior. So the whole interior is rubberized. Bellevue Tire and Auto gave us new tires. All the wheels had been sandblasted, reprimed, and repainted. The Performance Jeep gave us a new top, seat covers, and fenders. The diamond plates we bought, and Rick was really kind of not happy with Matt because he said, well, I need to cover it. Well, not happy with the guys because they were going to cover up the corners with diamond plate. You can see him here too. Well, the thing is, it's on the list of what needed to be done, and what he told it was Morris to hide the rust. Problem is under that rust, Rick did such a good job. Underneath that rust there is, underneath that diamond plate, there's no rust, and they're actually sealed in place. But there's an orange cap. I don't know if you can really see that, but there's a cap that's sitting here because the roll bars were also sprayed as far as with the rubberizing, and but you can see a cap. That cap was in the Jeep the entire time. It has never left the Jeep. It's still there today, but it was more or less covered in plastic when they were painted. But it did get the paint job. Matt's old girlfriend, his dad, Dave, is the one who did the paint. And one of the things he could do were ghost flames. It's one of the things Matt really wanted on his Jeep. So this hood was actually sitting in Dave's living room. It's outlined in orange because Matt's favorite color was orange. It's done in iridescent or chameleon or metal flake paint. So when you walk from one side of the vehicle to the other, the flames change color. The engine had been rebuilt. The transmission had been rebuilt. And it was all donated. And most all the any other auto parts and things we needed were all donated. The engine, when it was rebuilt, there were some parts that we wanted. We sent out a list to every auto parts store in the area, even if it was the same A1 here, A1 there, or Champion here, Champion there. It was each one of them donated something on that list, or a couple things. But things that we needed for the engine or other parts, they didn't just give us stock parts. Everything that was donated was chrome. I got more chrome on this engine than a lot of the cars that whirled the wheels. But anyway, everything got redone. It did make it to the top of the Continental Divide. For those who've been up there, if you go down this valley, that goes back down to Keystone. Or of course, it's also the way you come back up. But when you're up there, you stay on the roads. You don't get up into the drive into the tundra. That's why we actually walked, and we tried to walk where there was more rocks, walking up to the ridge. But it takes the tundra here years for it to grow a quarter of an inch. So you pretty much stay off of it and let things grow the way it should be. But up here at the top on the other side of that ridge is Matt's Valley. By the way, that's the name of it that we've named it. I'm sure that's, it probably has a very colorful name, like George's Gulch or something, but to us, it's Matt's Valley. We did a little ceremony up here at the top, and as far as with the guys, but if you're wondering, with all these people that are standing here, there is not, and there's one that's taken a picture that just happened to be out there, didn't get into the picture, but she was actually one of Janae's friends that was on vacation with her folks at the time we were up there. But they went, and these are all of Matt's friends, minus 3 that couldn't make the trip, that worked on Matt's Jeep. From one side to the other, Mike was one of Matt's roommates. He was with Matt that night. Myself, my wife, my daughter, Jeremy, John, Scott, and Jay are all 4 cousins. John is Matt's best friend. Does anybody there have a best friend you are so close that you finish each other's sentences? Does anybody have a best friend that you're so close that when you see one, you see the other? That was these guys. They were going to be each other's best man at their weddings, and John had a fiance, so that was coming up. And then there's Brian. Brian is the third leg of the 3 Musketeers. That he helps keeps the business going that they started. The rest of these guys have their own businesses now. But that he started, it's called Level Construction, and as it was when Matt was around and helping, that he moved to Lincoln, got married, moved back to Omaha, and then back down to Lincoln. So we're actually, we know he's in the area, but we really don't see Brian that much anymore. But we hear from him every once in a while. But the Jeep did get finished, and Matt's dream was completed as far as this part. So why were all of Matt's dreams not completed? Well, on April 24th, 2004, at 12:30, as Matt was walking home after celebrating his birthday with his friends, Matt was hit and killed by a drunk driver. He had turned 23 at midnight and was killed at 12:30 on his birthday. As a parent, that is not the phone call you want to have in the middle of the night. Where he was up at Dub's Pub, which is now called the Waiting Room, up in Benson at 62nd Maple. He lived at 63rd Maple, so just a block down the street. But they went up there to listen to the band and celebrate his birthday that he turned at midnight. But the other reason he was up there is my band was supposed to play there the following weekend. That he was up there saying, hey, you like these guys, you're going to really like my dad's band. They're going to be here next weekend. And but he was telling people, to be up there, and he was having a good time. But he needed to leave because it was a Friday night, and he had to be to work the next morning, or Saturday morning, to make sure that they had a shipment being delivered of wood and things that they're going to use for the next week. And it was enough to where they could get 2 jobs done the next week because they got paid by the job. And so he was going to be up there early in the morning and then be over at our house for his birthday party with all of our friends. Well, they left out of Dub's and went out the front door, out onto the street. Now, for those who haven't been up in the Benson area lately, or you've been up there, you know that it's just really a sidewalk, or a building, then a sidewalk. The sidewalks aren't really, they're wide, but they're not a full big city sidewalk because they've been narrowing things down because of the size of the cars and getting bigger. They need more street. Then you've got a parking strip in front of Dub's, and then you've got 2 lanes of traffic, and then you've got a parking strip, sidewalk, and a building across the street. Now again, it's only 2 lanes of traffic, but you have motorcycles, because Dub's was a biker bar. You have motorcycles parked all the way along the front. And so they could have gone 15 feet to the left and hit the button and waited for the crosswalk and walked across the street and then walked the extra 15 feet home. But the thing is, at 11:30 at night, all the lights blink yellow all the way through Benson. So why walk 15 feet one way, cross the street, but you still had to be careful, and then walk another 15? That's 30 extra feet. Just going to go home. So they decided just to stand amongst the motorcycles and wait for a truck that was coming from the east. The truck passed. They started out. Now again, only 2 lanes of traffic. So the way they were lined up from west to east was Mike at 6'5" when it was Matt's roommates, Damien at 6 foot or 6'5", 6'3", Damien, and Matt at 6 foot. Their extra height and the angle they were at, Matt didn't see the car come from the west. But Damien, who was standing next to him, did put his arm out and stop Matt. At this time, they were at the center line of those 2 lanes because the truck or the car was coming from the west. The light had changed. And Matt started crabbing. He says, "Come on, guys, quit messing around. I'm going to be over at my folks' house by noon, and I'm going to be over at work in the morning before I go there." By that time, Damien thought he'd seen the truck or the car coming, put his arm down, and Matt stepped out. And the young lady threw up on the hood of her car. You can see the imprint of Matt's body in the hood of the car. The right side of his face struck the passenger side of the windshield. If I took a picture of Matt's face as far as a profile, you can see his forehead, his cheekbone, his chin, his face and bent of that windshield, threw him 38 feet down that side street and drove away like it was a squirrel or rabbit that you hit, left Matt at the side of the road to die. People saw what kind of car it was, but not the license plate. But in the car was a young lady who was driving. She started slow, but her boyfriend in the passenger seat said, drive on, these people don't know who we are. We're not from this neighborhood." And she started to drive off. But the other couple in the back seat said, "We probably should stop. Look at the hood. Look at the windshield. The way he flew in the air and the way he landed on the ground, he's probably hurt pretty bad." Boyfriend said, "More, drive on. These people are stupid in this part of town." And they left. They went over to her house and parked in the driveway. And they couldn't get in their garage because it was full, but they all 4 got out of the car. And the boyfriend says, "This is the driver's house, the girl's house. Let's go in and have a few more drinks." The other couple says, "We probably should go home. We're probably going to be in trouble." Boyfriend said, don't worry. No one will ever know who did this." Thing is, every auto body shop's going to be looking for this damage the next day. They knew what kind of car it was, just not the license plate. But it was just going to be a process of elimination on trying to find these cars. And you can't go over and have it fixed because it's going to be obvious. So the other couple, instead of driving home, when that guy left, instead of driving home, went over to the crime scene. They saw the crime tape, saw the outline of Matt's body in the street, went over and told the police where they could find her. Police went over to the house, saw the damage to the car, saw the blood still on the car and a little bit of skin from Matt's face on the windshield. Went up the front door. The boyfriend answered. Officer says, "I see you have some damage to your car." "Oh, yeah, we hit a deer." 95% of the people who do hit and runs, that's their first excuse. "We hit a deer." The officer says, "Well, we can check and see what kind of blood it is. It looked like there's some skin or something on the windshield." He goes, oh. No, she was driving. Some boyfriend, huh? They arrested her. They found out when they took her down, this is 4 hours after she'd hit and killed Matt, when they tested her blood alcohol level, it was 0.198. What was it when she hit him? Was it ramping up? Was it ramping down? Now, she could have gone home and had a few drinks, and she could have told the police she did that. But the reason she didn't is because she was 19 years of age, had 3 prior MIPs, and was on probation for a DUI and still had her driver's license. That doesn't happen anymore these days. But at least they did find her, even though it was 4 hours later. Up at the cross, up at the site, is Matt's cross. Matt's friends went and put a 2x4 and put them together, and magic markered Matt's name on it, and everybody went up and signed it. And I sat there for a while, and because, as I said, my band was supposed to play the following weekend. Needless to say, we didn't do that. We couldn't get back on the rotation until November, and you can see there, and as far as November 9th of 2004, as far as the dates on the picture. In that meantime, we went and made a cross out of 4x. I routed Matt's name into it, and then everybody went back and re-signed that picture, that cross. This picture is of our daughter, Janae, Matt's sister. That they went up and signed the cross, and we did a fundraiser at Dub's that night. So all the proceeds and things that we made that night all went to Matt's Jeep. We had jerseys, we had helmets, we had autographed footballs, we had a lot of different things that were up there. And Heisman balls and Sports Illustrated autograph covers. So anyway, that cross sat there for almost 6 years until somebody stole it. We have an idea, but we're not going to make any assumptions. But it's more as it's been replaced a couple times. It's not there right now because we're waiting for the okay from Benson Business Association that they finished all their construction, and because they asked us to remove it for a while, and it won't be in this area because this area, which is where we had it, it's a parking strip, and it's catty corner from where Dubs is, and Matt actually landed right here in the street, but it will be put back in, but probably across the street. But we have to get the Benson Business Association to okay that drive again. They said they would, but we need to get it okayed again. Hopefully, nobody ever has to go through this. If you have, I am truly, truly sorry, because we know how each other feel. But for everybody else, I'm going to take you through that night, because you get a call at 1:45 in the morning, and of course I'm the one that's going to be answering the phone. Now I had been awake for about an hour and a half prior to that, and that phone ringing, and so I wasn't, I was kind of with it, out of a deep sleep, and I could hear my daughter and her boyfriend watching a movie in the other room down the hall, and so I'm just laying there and trying to go back to sleep, and the phone rings, and person at the other end says, "Is this Mr. Schmill?" I says, "Yes." He says, "Is your wife there?" I said, "Who is this?" Especially having a male call from my wife at 1:45 in the morning. And he says, "This is Pastor so-and-so from the Med Center. Your son Matt has been in a crash. Can you come down to the hospital right away?" I said, "Not a problem." I told my wife who it was, not where they were from, but who it was. And she says, "Well, who was it?" I said, "Well, somebody from the hospital." "You got to find out more information." Well, my wife is a nurse. If I'd have told my wife who it was that called, we'd have had a total different ride all the way down. The reason I didn't do that is, what is the chaplain at the hospital for? Comfort you spiritually, emotionally, give you last rites, not to give you medical information. And so that part I knew, and so I didn't tell her. So she's telling me I got to find out more information next time and so forth. So I walk down the hall as she's getting dressed, and told my daughter that Matt's been in a crash. We got to go to the hospital. And she says, "Well, who was it that called?" I said, "I don't know. I woke up out of a deep sleep." She told me again, "Dad, you got to find out more." "Yes, I know." Well, Kyle, her boyfriend at the time, more or less says, "Do you want me to go with?" I says, "I would be great if you could." I was hoping he would say that. Just because I know what kind of a young man he was, and they'd been dating for several years, and I knew his mom and his stepdad and his brother. I think everybody in the state knows his brother. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Eric Crouch. Well, this is his brother Kyle that our daughter was dating. But she went down the hall to get ready. We all got in the car. We drove down to the hospital. And the chaplain met us that had called and brought us into a room about 12 by 12. there at the hospital in the waiting area. We're off the waiting area. And we waited for, it says I wait here for the doctors to come in. And the room is dimly lit. It's got a big metal door with a wire mesh window in it. There's 2 chairs on one wall, 2 chairs on another, a table in the corner, another 2 chairs on a third wall, and then 1 chair on the fourth wall with a coat tree in the corner. Now, underneath that table was a trash can. There's 2 boxes of Kleenex. There wasn't any posters. There wasn't any windows. There wasn't even a clock. It was very dimly lit in there. And it seemed like forever when the chaplain left us, but it really wasn't that long. The door opened up, and there was a doctor, the nurse, and the chaplain. The doctor says, your son Matt has been hit by a car as he crossed the street. But luckily, the rescue squad was 2 blocks away. Thinking, oh, wait a minute, I'm thinking the worst all the way down here, and you're telling me luckily the rescue squad was 2 blocks away. Oh, and your son has a broken leg. Well, that's a given. If you've been hit by a car, you're never broken something. And he went on and he says, here at the rescue squad did this procedure, did that procedure. Here at the hospital, we did this and we did that. Everybody did everything for your son that we could. But your son didn't make it. For the next several hours, my wife said one word over and over and over again. No, 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 no. Somebody say no, that their soul has been torn out of their chest and thrown on the ground and crushed. Was my wife's voice at that time. The chaplain, or my daughter and her boyfriend, called several people, and when we got there, the police officer was there and asked if there's anybody I could call, or he could call. I said, not a problem. And I gave my cell phone. I said, just don't call these 2 numbers, which is my mom and dad and my mother and father-in-law. That's something we need to do in person. And so I think he called everybody on it because everybody was coming down. Our friends and their kids, Matt's friends and their parents. People are coming down in the middle of the night to be down at the hospital for us and for Matt. Luckily, it was not a payday night. For those who understand that, payday night at the emergency room is very busy. And this was just a middle ground Friday night, Saturday morning. And it was more or less that they were all coming down, and Kyle was being the gopher. He was telling people what was going on as far as what they knew. And as we're doing some of that during this time, all of a sudden the door opened up and there was a chaplain. He looked at Kyle and then looked over at the 3 of us. And back at Kyle, and he says, sir, did you know Matt? Well, yeah, I'm dating his sister. Graduated from Miller North with Matt. Can you identify Matt? There was a pause, but his voice said yes. His head said yes. And I'm thinking, Kyle, what are you going to see? This is the first time you ever faced death of somebody your own age. And so I said, Kyle, it's okay. Matt's my son. This is my job. He asked if he could go with. I think he needed to get away from the nose for a while. We walked down the hall with the chaplain. He took us into this room. It was a very large room. And it was dark except for one fluorescent light in the very back corner. And the light was coming through the windows in the doors, the double doors. And as we walked into the room, there's one light in that back corner there's a gurney underneath that light with a person on it. Now the room is full of gurneys. There's beds all over the place that are lined up with a pile of hospital stuff on each gurney. I didn't pay attention to that. What I wanted to do is get back to that back corner. And as I'm walking back there, I'm thinking to myself, this isn't happening. This isn't my son. This is somebody else's son. The closer I got, I could see Matt's large hands, his chin strap beard, and his spiked hair. And it was my son. He was already in a body bag with a sheet up to his chest and his hands on top of his sheet. His head was on a pillow. The only way I could tell he was injured was the blood that had come, dried blood that had come from his ears, and the blood-soaked pillow his head had been laying on. The way his leg was, he had a compound fracture of his lower leg. And I put my hand on his hands. I said, come on, buddy. Quit messing around. Let's go home. Well, he was already there. I brushed my hand through his hair. I said, you look very handsome tonight. And Kyle says he always made sure he looked good for the ladies. I held my son's hand, talked to him for a while. I looked around the room, and all of a sudden, it dawned on me what was on those other gurneys. A pillow, a body bag, and a sheet, waiting for the next person to come into that room. We decided to leave and go back. And I opened the door. My wife looked up at me, and I looked at her. Neither one of us said one word to each other. But her look at me was, is that Matt? And my look at her was, yes, it was. And she went back to her nose. People are coming and going, and I'm standing in the hallway. And as I'm standing there, I'm talking to our pastor and our family doctor. And the chaplain came up, and he had something to do. He had something to say. In his hand, he had a bag. And he handed me that bag. And Morty says, I am so sorry for your loss. These are your son's personal effects. And I looked at that bag with cards and pictures, with rings, with chapstick, with a lighter, with $3, with cards and pictures, with his package of cigarettes, and a receipt from that day's McDonald's lunch. And as I held that bag in my hand, I realized my son's life had gone full circle because I was again holding my son in the palm of my hand as I did when he was born. This is all you get back. This is all your family gets back is a bag of stuff. And a human life is worth a lot more than a bag of stuff. This is how we visit Matt, by a cold, smooth piece of granite. Where I touch my son is here. My wife touches him is here. My daughter touches him in the center. All the way along this stone, because the door is on this side of the mausoleum, all the way along this stone are fresh lip prints. We had a lot of young ladies that were friends. To this day, there are still fresh lip prints all the way along the bottom of that stone. He happened to be decorated for his birthday. Right now, we'll be going back and putting birthday decorations. Right now, it's decorated for Easter. But we will go back and we'll go visit Matt this week. We will go in and touch our son in the areas and more or less give him a talk, make sure everything's okay, and then go home. But this is where Matt now lives. Thing is, when we buried Matt, we didn't have a plot. I don't know how many of you out there actually have a plot where you know you're going to be buried, but we didn't. So we bought Matt's here. I'll be here. My wife will be here. My daughter will be next to us. Now that she's married, they have to decide what they're going to do with with her crypt. If they're both, because there's a full coffin here, they can be two urns. There can be a coffin and an urn. They can decide where they want to do, or they can sell it and buy another set of crypts, whatever they want to do. But this is where we all end up. It's just that all of us are out there. All of you are out there are way too young to be up here. You could be 90 years old. Again, you still got things to do, and we all do. But the two plots above and the three plots, the two plots above and the three plots below are still empty. No one has purchased them yet. The thing is you need to think of what would you do if you had too much to drink and you got behind the wheel of a car and you crashed into somebody. How many here would like to put somebody above or below my son? How many had too much to drink and you got behind the wheel of a car and you crashed into something? How many here would like to be placed above or below my son? So those percentages are there. Every time you get behind the wheel of a car, those percentages go up. They say you've driven probably 9 times before you're caught that first time. Some more, some less. That's just a percentage. But those percentages go up the more you do that. How we started the program. When I started, it was me speaking. I was the main speaker for Mothers Against Drunk Driver. We started a campaign to where if you drink, don't drive. It's actually on his Jeep down here at the bottom. And so we've gone in and spoke. Now, as far as the poster that we did with our program with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, when we were working with them, and the articles I was asked to write in the Air Pulse, because this is a program that we're doing, we did it often, more or less to have a safe ride home. But it was more or less that the articles I wrote, and it went from 8 to 12 DUIs per month on off base to 0. Enough to where the general of the 55th Air Wing, it was brought to his attention, and he asked me to come in and give my presentation to every personnel on base. I came in, I was there all day. I did 4 presentations of over 1,500 people each group. I was in one of the service hangars, and you put a full 747, tail wings and all, in this one hangar. There are 4 hangars that have that capacity. There's 2 huge rear projection TVs, there were bleachers and everything else. When I came in, I didn't realize until they were cleaning things up at the end of the presentations how big this room really was, because those bleachers looks like they were just kind of some risers that you'd have on stage if you were at a high school musical. They were full bleachers, and they came in on these small trucks that weren't small trucks, they were semis, but they looked that small coming into this room. But doing the same presentation we did here, but it going again face to face. Town hall meetings. We've been in a lot of town hall meetings. They're not out there that much. I think Iowa has a few once in a while, but unless there's something major going on, they don't have those meetings anymore in the different little smaller communities. Victim impact program speakers program. We are the speakers to do the program for I'll get this sooner or later. Serenity Matters with Sarpy County. We're doing Nebraska Safety Council. We do have other schools and that are across the state and into Iowa and down into Kansas that we also do, but more or less to go in and give our presentations as far as giving the presentation that you are taking here. Car shows, we go in and more or less Matt's Jeep is sitting at a car show that we're doing education. We're not winning any trophies or anything, although the amount of chrome on it we probably could. But it's there more or less to do education at those car shows. We're not at all of them, but we're at several. Mystery Manor Haunted House. I don't know if anybody here has been to Mystery Manor Haunted House, but we are the charity of choice for Mystery Manor. Every year they do a Matt's Dream Night, to where you come down and it's free admission with a donation, a numerical donation to Matt's Dream. That's how we run our program for the rest of the year. But more or less that if you're interested in getting tickets for that, you can contact us at mattstream.org or give us a call. But the reason why we're there is Matt and I have been characters at the house. We still are. I still am. But if you've seen the white gorilla, now you can come up and say hi to me. I'll probably just grunt still at you. But anyway, but at the night that we do the Matt's Dream Night is we do have our tent down there. If the Jeep is available, that we bring it down, and it's down there, and more to answer questions and talk to people. So you can come down and say hi. But at any rate, we do Southwest Iowa communities that we do their VIP programs in different areas there through the court system. That as far as Iowa Department of Corrections, that the only place we haven't been is in Fort Dodge at the main prison, but we've done a lot of the corrections facilities across the state and given the same presentation. They have to do a victim impact panel, as you all have to take now. Legislative lobbyist. I'm not a registered lobbyist, but we have gone down and done a few bills. We'll talk about that a little bit. but it's things that more or less change the laws in the state and other states. Poster essay contest is something that we're doing through the schools, which will probably start maybe here getting the group back together and organize it for the fall, or in the fall, and then run it for the spring. But we haven't had it for a couple of years. Matt's Law. Okay, things that needed to be changed in the state. At the time of the crash, it was a misdemeanor to leave the scene of a personal injury accident in Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas, and 4 of the states. The other 43 states was a felony to leave the scene of an accident. But in Nebraska, it was a misdemeanor. And the most this person was going to do was 1 year. And probably just get out with probation for killing our son. We needed to change that. I wanted to get it changed before she was sentenced. But we found out that whatever the law is, the time you do the crime, that's what you're going to get punished for. So we needed to change it for the future. And so we started working on it. I had no background in any of this. I was a dad, an ex-jock, and an old coach. We needed to find out how this is done. So we found Senator Friend from Omaha, said he would introduce the bill. What we needed to do is he'd introduce the bill and we would get the law changed, but he will do it, he says, if I'm in it for the long haul. I said, Senator, I'm in it for as long as it takes. Thinking to myself, Senator, how long is that when you say long haul? So I asked him, and he said it's going to take 3 to 5 years to get this bill passed. I says, I'm as long as it takes. Thinking to myself, Senator, you don't know how I work. Because as soon as that bill was introduced, I went down and met with every state senator face to face, with the attorney general, with the governor, anybody who would listen. Out of the 160 times we've been on TV in the last 11 years, 25 of those times were just for this. That law is going to get passed, but it was going to die in committee because it wasn't going to be a priority bill. So we'd have to start all over again in the summer, or excuse me, in the fall for the next spring. So we started working on it, and I found out about amendments. She can make one bill an amendment to another. Now we just got to find that bill. So the Attorney General had a bill that was going to increase the penalties for multiple DUIs by a lot, and it was Senator Friend's priority bill. So I talked to the county attorney, or excuse me, the city, John Bruni, and we went down and met with the senator and twisted his arm a little bit, or at least John did, and he introduced it. Well, he introduced it as an amendment to his big DUI package. So instead of waiting 3 to 5 years, we did it in 8 months. Became a Class 3A felony. It's actually written in. It's known as Matt's Law. If you leave the scene of a personal injury accident, it's a Class 3A felony, which is 5 to 8 years. You'll be facing Matt's Law. And it went into effect July 12th of 2006. Where Iowa and Kansas are on this slide, that we went and got contacted by Lisa Hidden, who was the representative from the Ames area. And they had 2 hit and runs there, and she was asking what we did. I went into Ames and met with her. They worked on it, got it passed. It went into effect July 22nd of 2006. And where Kansas is listed, went down, and I didn't go down, but more or less I sent an email to both houses in Kansas because they really weren't working on a bill anywhere. And I asked them, told them what happened, why the law needs to be changed in Kansas. And my last statement was, are you going to let Iowa and Nebraska beat Kansas? Well, Kansas beat us. Theirs went into effect on the 2nd of July of 2006. Since then, we've gotten Maine, New Jersey's, and Montana's done. The only one that we don't have is Louisiana, and they're on their own on that one. But in Nebraska, it is known as Matt's Law. We did get it changed again in 2011. It went into effect on January 1st of 2012. It is now a Class 3 felony to leave a scene of a personal or a serious bodily injury or death accident of another human being. You will now do 15 to 20 years. And it's named after Matt still. Legislative bills we've worked on. We found out when we did Matt's Law in 2006, there was a lot of things that needed to be closed, loopholes that needed to be closed, things that needed to be fixed, and as they were coming up and changing things as far as drinking and driving laws. So we worked on a few of those. Each one of these laws, I went down and I had written testimony and verbal testimony. I testified in legislation for each one of these bills. And so, and I do it each time. So 3, 5. Why I did 10 in 2009, I have no idea. I never did that again. But usually it would say no more than 4. It would usually say 3, 2, 1. And here lately it's just been 1. If you go down that list of years, you can see 2015 is not there. I did send a letter down, but because I didn't go down in person, and I didn't go down and have written testimony for that that meeting, that hearing, that I don't count it. Besides, our daughter was got married that year, and I was just a tad busy. But since then, we have been working on a bill here and there as they come up. So that's Matt. April 24th is known as Matt's Day. He has 3 days: the day he was born, the day he died, the day he graduated from high school. How many days will you have? How many things will you see? How many places will you go? How many things will you experience? Matt will always get 23. He'll never get gray hair. But every time we have a family event, there's always an empty chair. There's always that missing laugh, that missing story, that missing joke. It'll be that way for the rest of our lives and the life of his sister, who's got married here, of course, as I mentioned. And 3 years ago, we had our first grandson. His name is Hudson Matthew, after his uncle. And she is expecting here in mid-June for a second grandson. So we'll see what happens when that little guy shows up and how he gets to meet Matt, his uncle. Now, it's up to you. As an adult, and I'm assuming the majority of you are, if you're not, you shouldn't be drinking. But when we became adults, we're told we're responsible. You're now a responsible adult. You need to act that way. I'm sure that a few of you, probably when this all happened and you got your ticket or you got arrested and all those, that you probably got told how irresponsible. You're not a responsible person anymore. We're adults. We need to be responsible for what we do. But the thing is, out of all these times, I have not yet seen a responsible adult. That's a responsible drunk adult. It's just something that happens. But you need to take it on yourself. You need to make the changes. You need to keep yourself safe and the people around you safe so that this doesn't happen to you as it happened to us. Matt was taken too soon. These are the pictures on his memorial video. This is the next to last picture. He's king of the world. He's bow of the boat in Lake Dillon in Colorado. His last picture is him blowing a kiss to everybody that came to his funeral. Your videos should be graduations, weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, not memorial videos, because all of us are way too young to be up here. How many will it take? All these pictures that are coming in here are roadside memorials. Now, I do have more pictures of roadside memorials. It's just that these pictures would be so small you wouldn't be able to tell what they were. Now, I know the majority of the story is on almost all of these, but a couple of them I'm going to pick out. One is this one down here. Now, this picture, you'll see a driveway that's behind that cross. There's 2 pictures on it. This saying young man. At the top of this driveway, at the end of this driveway, is a very nice large white house. This is north of Des Moines. This direction, there is coming down from the main highway, there is a bridge and a ravine. And there's bracings on either side of the ravine, keeping you from going down into it. And there's a large hill that's coming down the hill, down toward this area. Now, the young man was coming home from work late at night. He worked at a grocery store. And he had just crossed the bridge that was back here. And he saw a car coming down the hill, and it was swerving back and forth. And it started getting closer and closer. And as he was crossing the bridge, it kind of swerved over in his lane. He swerved in to go into this grass area. The problem is the girder on the side of the bridge, the washout for the gully had where the creek had gone a little out further than where that girder was. And instead of going into the driveway, it went in face down, or front of the car down into the ravine, killing the young man. So his pictures are on here. The house, nice white house at the end of this driveway, is where he lived. So he died in front of his house. These pictures are up in northern Iowa. It happened to be, of course, a snowy day. That there's 5 crosses. I think there's 5 crosses here. And I asked, there was a business that was right here. And I went into the business and I asked what happened. There was a family coming from a town to the west, going home on a Sunday afternoon. And as they passed, they were going home about 10 more miles. And a car swerved, went into their lane, did a head-on collision, killed the entire family at this site on a Sunday afternoon on their way home. As I said, all these pictures have similar stories. This one is in Oskaloosa. It's in front of a gas station that a quick shop. Mom went in to get some groceries and some diapers with her baby in the car, and there was a head-on collision and killed the baby. So think next time, please. So again, how many will it take? This is Matt's cross. When it goes back up, it's sitting in our garage right now. It will go back up hopefully this spring, fall, or summer. But hopefully none of you have a cross out there on the highway for you. I've mentioned before that you are way too young to be up here, and that you need to take care of yourself. They say you've driven drunk. They say you've probably driven drunk 9 times before you're caught that first time. That's an average. Some people more, some people less. But you can't be a statistic. So Matt Stream, when our website was up, we're working on and getting it back up again. Website was up, our logo was designed. This is our new logo that was designed by one of Matt's bandmates, who was a graphic artist. He now has a print shop over by Roteller's Bakery off of Harrison. But he came up with the orange ribbon, which is on Matt's wheel cover on his Jeep. And where he came up with that, it was Morris an invention, and Morris just put Matt Stream on it. But where he came with that orange ribbon was he was over at Kinko Copy, and he was going to get some other things printed. He didn't have his print shop yet, and he was getting some things printed. And the gentleman that was there in front of him had a ribbon that was just like this, but yellow. And he asked the gentleman, he likes the design, where did he get it? And he told him, he says, do you mind if I use that same design? He says, yeah, as long as it's not yellow. He says, no, it'll be orange. And didn't tell him a store or anything, but Morris just says, it's for a friend. Well, it turned out the police officer that was at the hospital that night was the gentleman standing in front of Justin at Kinko. And that police officer's son had an accidental suicide. I don't know how you have an accidental suicide, but more or less it was his son had gotten into his dad's gun safe, took his police revolver, got it unlocked, and somehow and accidentally shot himself. And so he was trying to put together a program for suicide loss and with his family. And he was at the hospital during that same time helping us through the loss of Matt. So that's one connection we have with the officer, or the second connection we have with the officer. The third one is his wife and my wife were in the same Bible classes to help get through this time of mourning. So anyway, back to the logo. We came back and decided to design the whole logo using the orange ribbon with Matt Stream, added the foundation to keep the ribbon strong and straight. The red heart is the beating organization where the motto is if you drink, don't drive. And the white heart is Matt because he's the one that's not here. I want to thank you for attending the Matt Stream VIP program. When you made your class payment and we got confirmation that it had cleared the bank, you were emailed or mailed the class questionnaire that needs to be filled out and sent back to the Matt Stream Foundation with the correct 3 program codes to confirm you attended the class with the correct 3 program codes that were within this PowerPoint presentation. If you have the correct answers, you'll be sent a certificate by email or mail to show your probation officer or court that you took the VIP class. Note, if you took this as part of the Serenity Matters counseling program, you will receive all program forms and certificates from them, not Matt Stream Foundation. If you have any questions, please send Matt Stream an email at mattstream@cox.net. Please stay well and out of trouble. Thank you.